start here. The Trump administration continues to escalate military pressure against Venezuela as a U.S. warship docked in Trinidad and Tobago's capital yesterday. You can see it right there off the waters. So government officials from both countries say the USS Gravely is going to stay right there until Thursday so they can carry out what they're calling joint training exercises. But let's think about it this way. That parking spot is just miles away from its neighboring Venezuela. The Venezuelan government calls the positioning a hostile provocation and a serious threat to peace in the Caribbean. But the U.S. government says this is all just part of a campaign to fight drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. President Trump has claimed, without providing a lot of evidence, that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is the ringleader of the organized crime gang Tren de Aragua. So let's go live to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, you can probably guess what my first question is going to be. Is there a possibility of land strikes?
There's absolutely a possibility of land strikes, Reed. Why? Because President Trump said that there's a possibility of land strikes. And he's also positioning the largest warship in the world, the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is, as we speak, steaming to the Caribbean from the Mediterranean. The largest aircraft carrier on board, F-18 fighter jets, F-35 fighter jets, essentially the kind of military hardware that you put in position when you're about to launch strikes. You'll remember the carriers that were active in the fight against the Houthi targets, and also to prepare for airstrikes in Iran. You know, you send a carrier when you are preparing for the possibility of land strikes like that. But as you said, there are maybe 3 or 4 destroyers that are there already, and those destroyers are armed with cruise missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles. You mentioned the Gravely, it's off the coast of Trinidad and Tobago. And Venezuela is saying that that's a provocation. I mean, they could see it. But there are a number of other warships in that area. I also want to point out, by the way, I spoke to the Navy this morning. With that hurricane headed in their direction, they have said that they are repositioning some of their naval assets, some of their ships, in order to get out of the way, but they are still fully deployed.
All right, so the Venezuelan government also accused the United States of preparing to launch something called a false flag attack. Help us to know what a false flag attack is and what led the Venezuelan government to make a claim like that.
Yeah, so Reed, first of all, a false flag attack is when usually an intelligence organization, in this case they're blaming the CIA or accusing the CIA, would put together an attack that would be against somebody, in this case probably the United States, and make it look like somebody else did it. So in a manner of speaking, it's setting up an attack or a potential attack and making it look as if Venezuela was provoking and doing something in that direction. Venezuela has said that Trinidad and Tobago and the United States are in league in trying to launch a false flag attack. That's the accusation. While the United States say, look, these are routine drills that they're having with a local ally. So it came up a few weeks ago, too, that the Venezuelans said that the CIA was working to have an attack on the embassy. The embassy physically is still there, but the diplomatic ties stopped a few years ago. Again, the officials say that is absolutely false. The United States is not involved in any false flag activity. However, you may recall about a week and a half ago, President Trump actually said that the CIA was operating in Venezuela, which is kind of strange because CIA operations are by their very nature covert. Right. But which certainly would have assumed that there are CIA intelligence agents on the ground in places like Venezuela, in places like Colombia, and if nothing else, gathering information about these alleged drug runners in part of the interdiction campaign that's out there. And by the way, when we spoke to the Navy or anybody else in Southern Command, why are you sending a carrier for drug interdiction? That mission is still the stated and aimed mission. No time in my experience have I seen a carrier involved in something like that, because that is more designed. The military is, and I don't need to tell you this, Reed, you know this, the military plans for whatever may happen, right? So if you send a ship out of port, they have a very specific mission because they have to have the sort of weaponry involved. They have to have sustenance. They have to know how long they're going to be away for. Everything takes planning. So it is no small thing moving not just an aircraft carrier, but it will be going with its own flotilla of destroyers headed in that direction.
Charlie D'Agata, fascinating times. That's a lot of muscle out there in the water. We appreciate it.